what is a VInYin? Today you are going to find out. Hi friends, welcome back to your practice. I am Katie Arnold. Welcome to my channel. Today's class is a full body VInYin, and what that means is it's a vinyasa flow combined with a yin class. Now, vinyasa flow, that's where we think of the heat, the fire, the energy, the flowing movement to movement, the creating of energy. Think chaturanga, up dog, down dog, vinyasa. Yin yoga is slower, it is juicier. We do longer active holds to help get into the connective tissues. Today's practice, we are combining them both. I have found that these practices just always kind of surprise me how much I love them when I practice them myself. And so I thought I would introduce or reintroduce, I do believe there's another one on my channel, to you guys today. Now, for our practice today, you don't technically need any props. With that said, if you have a yoga blanket, if you have two blocks, I do highly recommend them. Now, like I said, they are not required, but they are definitely suggested. Now, if you don't have any of these props at home, that is totally fine. A great replacement for a blanket, it doesn't need to be a special yoga blanket by any means. It's just a blanket. You could grab a throw blanket from your couch. You could grab a chunky beach or bath towel. That would be great. You could replace the blocks with a stack of books or use nothing at all. That is totally fine as well. There is nothing about this practice where the blocks are required, but if you have them, I highly recommend you try this practice with them and notice how the postures change a little bit by using the blocks. If you are interested in getting props for future practices, I will leave a link to some of my favorite props in the description. I like cork blocks personally, but I do also use foam blocks at other times as well. So if you're using foam blocks at home and you see me using cork, it's the same thing. They're totally fine, great replacement. So go ahead, roll out your yoga mat and meet me right back here. All right, friends, so if you are using a blanket for our practice today, you'll see that I have mine folded up a couple times and placed about halfway down my yoga mat. Also, if you are using blocks, I have those placed right off the top of my mat. We're not going to need them or use them for the beginning part of our sequence, but as we get into our practice, they'll be easy to grab. As a reminder, these are just suggestions, not required. You can still go through this whole practice without using any of these props. So we're going to get started in a child's pose. Bringing your knees out nice and wide, big toes towards one another. Sink the hips down towards the heels and walk your hands out in front of you. You can let your forehead rest all the way down onto the mat if that's accessible here. And you'll notice me just hovering a little bit off of the mat. That's just simply because of the way that if I were to rest all the way down, the blanket really soaks in the sound. So we're still going to get a little bit of that, but hopefully save it just a little bit here. But if your forehead will rest all the way down, I highly encourage you to just allow yourself to fully soften, letting the belly soften between the thighs. There's no need to hold that in here. Maybe you even rock the forehead side to side on the mat, massaging out that third eye center, that place between the eyebrows. And connecting with our Ujjayi breath, so our Ujjayi Pranayama, that nose-to-nose breathing, that ocean-sounding breath. So feeling that slight constriction at the back of the throat, inhaling in through the nose. Exhaling back out through the nose. Inhaling through the nose. Exhaling back out through the nose. One more time, just like that. And starting to introduce the movement. Inhale, walking the hands over towards the right side of your mat. Exhaling, softening here. Maybe stacking that left hand on top of the right. Think about still pulling that left hip down towards the heels. Big breath in. Big breath out. Inhale, walking the hands back through center. And exhale, taking them over towards the left. That right hand can stack on top of the left. Right hip pulling down towards that right heel. Breathing in through that right side body, that nice side body stretch. Big breath in. Big breath out. Inhale, walking it back through center. And pressing yourself up to a neutral tabletop position. Wrists under shoulders, knees under hips. Then inhale, dropping your belly, lifting your gaze, coming through cow pose. Exhale, belly button to spine, chin to chest for cat. Inhale through cow, heart shines forward, gaze pulls forward. Exhale through cat, spine rounds, pulling up towards the ceiling. Inhale, belly drops. Exhale, spine rounds. Inhale, cow pose. Exhale, cat pose. Inhale to that neutral spine. Curl your toes under. Exhale, let your hips go up and back, downward facing dog. So go ahead and walk out that down dog. Bending one knee, bending the other. And start to find some stillness. Pressing the chest back towards your thighs. Feeling those heels pulling down towards your mat. Knowing that they don't need to touch. They're just moving in that direction. Inhale, shift it forward to a high plank pose. Palms pressing into the mat. Heels pulling towards the back of our space. Pull that core in strong. Press the mat away. Broadening through the collarbones. Big breath in. Exhale, lower that right forearm, that left forearm, forearm plank. So still creating that long line of energy, that neutral spine, that low belly tucking in. Big breath in. Exhale, drop the hips, the thighs, tops of your feet can come onto the mat. Shine that heart forward for Sphinx pose. So forearms are parallel with one another, palms pressing into the mat. Gaze is neutral. Take that neck wherever feels best to you. Big breath in. Big breath out. One more big inhale. Exhale, start to lower down. Slide your hands underneath your shoulders. Press it up and back to your child's pose. Big breath in. Big breath out. Inhale up to that neutral tabletop position. And if you're using your blocks, you can grab them here. And we are going to play with using these blocks a little bit today. So keeping your hands on the blocks, you can send your hips up and back to a downward facing dog. And maybe you just notice how this changes your downward facing dog. And not making it mean anything good or bad, but noticing it. Knowing that if you like it, this is an option through any practice to put your hands on blocks, right? Take a big breath in. Exhale, step that right foot forward in between those blocks. Soften that left knee down to the mat. Untuck the toes. Right knee tracking over that right ankle. We're keeping our hands on our blocks in our low lunge today. So lengthening through that spine. Lunging forward, but not letting that right knee come past the toes. Feeling that opening through the front of the left hip. Big breath in. Big breath out. Start to curl those left toes under. And let the hips go up and back, downward facing dog. We meet right back here. Take an inhale breath. Exhale, walk your hands to the back of your mat, forward fold back of our space. Inhale up, flat back. Exhale and fold forward. Root down through those feet. Inhale, stand all the way up, sweeping the arms up and overhead. Exhale, let your hands come down through heart center. Inhale, arms reach up. Exhale, hinging at your hips, fold all the way back down. Inhale to that flat back, long spine. Exhale, walk it all the way out to a high plank. Palms come back down on those blocks. So high plank with the hands on the blocks. It's the same thing here. Take a big inhale breath, shift it forward slightly. You can always drop those knees. Exhale, lower halfway down, elbows in close to the side of our body. Inhale, upward facing dog, heart shines forward, thighs lift up off of the mat. Exhale, back downward facing dog. It's a little bit different taking that chaturanga to up dog flow with those blocks, but I find it creates so much space in the body. It feels really nice. Take a breath in. Exhale, step that left foot forward in between your hands. Right knee softens down. Untuck those right toes. Lengthen up through the spine. Now, if you're not using blocks at home, you can do the same thing, tenting up onto your fingertips. You might not get quite so much length. So I love to have the blocks here, but you can still do it. Blocks are not necessary. Big breath in. Big breath out. One more inhale. Curl those right toes under. Exhale, step it back, downward facing dog. Take a breath in. Exhale, walk your hands to the back of your mat. Inhale, flat back. Exhale and fold forward. Inhale, root to rise. Exhale, hands down through heart center. Inhale, sweep those arms back up nice and high. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, high plank pose. Inhale, shift it forward. Exhale, lower halfway. Inhale, up dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Big breath in. Big breath out. Step that right foot forward, soften that left knee down. Big inhale breath right here. You can keep those left toes tucked. Exhale, downward facing dog. Breath in. Exhale, forward fold back of our space. Inhale, flat back. Exhale and fold forward. Inhale, root to rise. Exhale, hands down through heart center. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, fold. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, high plank. Inhale, shift it forward. Exhale, lower halfway. Inhale, up dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Breath in. Exhale, step that left foot forward, soften that right knee. Big breath in, find length. Exhale, downward facing dog. Breath in. Exhale, forward fold, back of our space. Inhale, flat back. Exhale and fold forward. Inhale, root to rise. Exhale, hands down through heart center. Inhale, arms reach. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, high plank pose. Inhale, shift it forward. Exhale, lower halfway. Inhale, up dog. Exhale, down dog. Big breath in. Exhale, step that right foot forward one more time through. Soften that left knee. Inhale, lift and lengthen. Exhale, downward facing dog. Breath in. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale to that flat back. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, stand all the way up. Exhale, hands down through heart center. Inhale, arms reach. Exhale, fold. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, high plank pose. Inhale, shift it forward. Exhale, lower halfway. Inhale, up dog, your big back bend. Exhale, downward facing dog. Breath in. Exhale, left foot steps forward, right knee drops. Inhale, lift and lengthen. Exhale, downward facing dog. Breath in. Exhale, forward fold back of our space. Inhale, flat back. Exhale and fold. Inhale, root to rise. Exhale, hands down through heart. Inhale, arms reach. Exhale, fold forward. You're doing great. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, high plank pose. Inhale, shift it forward. Exhale, last chaturanga. Inhale, up dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Big breath in. Exhale, drop the knees down. Take your blocks off to the side if you were using them. And meet me back in a downward facing dog. Big breath in. Big breath out. Inhale that right leg high. Exhale, half pigeon. Bringing that right knee behind that right wrist. Left leg is long on our mat. You can stay up on tall arms if this feels good, if this feels like enough. You can come down onto your forearms. If you are using props, you could always slide a block underneath that right hip. If you're using a blanket, you could kind of slide it or bunch it up underneath that hip. You could rest your forehead down on a block. Take what you need right here. We'll be here for about 10 more breaths. Inviting our breath to slow down. If you came down onto those forearms, first make your way back up into tall arms, moving any props out of the way and making your way back to a downward facing dog, taking any movements that might feel good between sides, and then inhaling that left leg high, finding that half pigeon now on the left side. Knowing that the closer we keep that left heel in towards the body, the less intense the stretch will be. The more parallel that left shin comes with the top of our mat, the deeper into the hips you'll go. And before you come down onto your forearms, think about squaring those hips. So pulling that right hip forward, that left hip back slightly. Maybe you bunch up that blanket. Maybe you use a block under your forehead, and allowing yourself to settle in. We're obviously at the point in our practice where we're slowing things down. Maybe with that you get to create more control over that breath. We're just coming back into tall arms, moving any props out of the way. Make your way back. One more final downward facing dog. Take what you need here. And then dropping down onto those knees. I'm going to take my blanket and I'm going to fold it up a little bit here. And I'm going to sit right on the edge of it. This is my preference. You don't have to do that, but if you have a blanket that you're using. And sitting on the edge, allowing the pelvis to tilt forward. Bring the soles of your feet together and take the knees out nice and wide. So we're in our butterfly position. First, we'll lengthen up through the spine. And you can start to walk those hands out in front of you. And I want to encourage you today to take them out nice and wide. Finding the fold here that feels best in your body. You can allow the forehead to float here. You can also always grab a block and maybe you create a block tower. Maybe you let the forehead rest all the way down. Just an option for your fold here for what feels good in your body. And maybe noticing as we hold this posture, if you find that you have more space that becomes available, maybe you soften a little bit deeper, maybe you lower that block tower if you're using it. If at any point it becomes too much, and that's not just with this posture, but with any of these postures that we're doing, especially as we hold them for longer periods of time, then I want you to back out a little bit. And we talk in yoga a lot about finding our edge. And especially when we're introducing yin and these longer active holds, they can definitely get uncomfortable. And I don't want you to be in pain. So if anything feels painful, then definitely back out. If it's a sensation that feels like expansion, feels like opening, maybe you linger in it. And then if it becomes too much, you back out. And if at any point you aren't feeling enough of a sensation, fold forward a little bit deeper. Maybe using that breath, you find a little bit more space and you're able to go a little bit deeper. You're able to lower into that fold even deeper. Final breath. Starting to walk yourself back up. Moving any block tower out of the way. Helping bring those knees together. Planting your feet. Plant those hands behind you and just gently windshield wiper your knees side to side. And I'm going to start to come into a frog pose. If you are using a blanket today, I definitely recommend it here. So I'm going to unfold my blanket a little bit. It's still going to stay folded a few times through. If you're using blocks, this is also a great opportunity to use your blocks. So I'm going to keep mine nearby. And we're just going to start in a tabletop position and start to walk those knees out nice and wide, kind of like we would with a child's pose, but we're not bringing those big toes towards one another. We're going to take the feet out and just start to slide those knees out nice and wide. Try to create a 90-degree angle with those knees and then come down onto your forearms. This is where the blocks can be really nice because you can use them for support. So I'm just going to slide this one as much as I can underneath my chest, giving my chest something to rest down on. Flexing your feet. I could take the second block and rest my forehead down. You can use no blocks at all. That's totally fine here too. But if you have them, it can be a really nice support. Frog pose is intense, and it can get intense really quickly. Now, I'm going to say once again, if there is pain that is being caused in this posture, I want you to back out. And I want you to instead roll on your back and take a happy baby. So just taking your knees out nice and wide, you will get the same sensation, but hopefully without that pain, because it won't be quite as deep, but we're still getting that stretch. And really focus on your breath. Really, really focus on your breath. If you have more space, maybe you soften a little bit more. All right, starting to make our way out of this. If you were resting your head on a block, first move that out of the way. Press your hands down into your mat. Start to bring your big toes towards one another. Press into those hands and pushing yourself up. And I just first like to come into a child's pose, so bringing those knees a little bit closer. You could even bring them all the way together. And just soften down, folding over yourself here. And pressing and rolling yourself all the way up. You're going to move all of our props out of the way. So if you were using a blanket, you can move it off to the side. If you're using blocks, you can move them off to the side. And just roll all the way down onto your back. Shifting the hips over towards the left side of your mat. Extend your legs out long and take them over towards the right. Reach those arms overhead and over towards the right. So coming into our banana asana, nice side body stretch through that left side body. If this is enough, you can stay just like this. If you want to go a little bit deeper, that right hand can clasp that left wrist, giving a little bit more length there. You can also cross that left ankle over the right. And just notice how that deepens the stretch. Again, if it's too much, just back out. Breathing into that left side body. Gently releasing and starting to shift the hips over towards the right, extending the legs over towards the left, bringing those arms overhead and to the left, maybe grabbing that right wrist and extending and lengthening, maybe crossing that right ankle over the left, deepening this right side body stretch. Gently releasing, bringing the hips back through center, bring the knees into your chest, taking some circles with the knees. And switching directions. Big breath in. Exhale, dropping the knees over towards the right. Supine twist. Inhaling back through center and dropping the knees to the other side. Inhaling back through center, hugging the knees into the chest, wrapping the arms around the shins, bring your nose up to your knees. Take one more big inhale breath, squeeze everything together. Exhale, extend it all out, Shavasana, our final resting posture. Taking up as much space as feels good to you. Knowing you can always use that blanket like a pillow if that feels good. Get out any of those final wiggles that you need to, so you can rest in a place of complete stillness. Steadiness. Softness. Taking a big inhale breath. Sigh it out. Wiggling fingers and toes. Maybe reaching long from your fingertips to your toes. Rolling over onto your right side, coming into a fetal position. Pressing into your hands. Coming all the way up to a nice easy seat. Rooting down through those sit bones. Lifting up through the crown of your head. And now sweeping those arms out nice and wide, palms meeting overhead. Exhale, let your hands come down through heart center. Thank you so much for joining me. Om Shanti. Peace. Thank you all so much for joining me. I'm so grateful to have you here. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, I would be so grateful. It helps more people find free yoga, and I mean, who doesn't love that? It'll also help make sure that you find out when new classes are available to you every Friday for our yoga flows, every Monday for our guided meditation and journaling practices. If you haven't already grabbed my free mindful movement class calendar, it is a whole month of yoga practices to meet you where your body is at every single day and to help you learn to have that awareness of where your body is at and meet it right there. So thank you all so much for joining me. Everything is in the description below, all the links and everything that you need. If you are interested in grabbing props, I will also leave links for some of my go-tos in the description. So I will see you back here for your next practice.